I'm not gonna do it. I'm serious. All right, guys. I want to reiterate, just the importance of coming to training and why we come to training. There's a difference when it comes to money, right? One of the things that we talk about is spending versus investing, right? You can spend money or you can invest money. It's a choice. You go to the mall and you have a choice whether you want to buy things you don't need with money you don't have, right? Or even if you have it, the decisions that you make with your money will determine where you are many, many years from now, right? And so we want to help our clients make good decisions, invest their money now so that they can have a great life later. Well, the thing is that when it comes to spending versus investing, a lot of times we just relate that to money, but there's that same concept applies to your time as well, right? And as you look at the group today, right, there are people that chose not to be here, and I'm not going to judge anyone, depending on what social circles you're in, what type of media you consume, right, left, right, all these different things, then that will determine how fearful you are about what's going on, and I'm very aware of that, okay? But it's just funny to me as an outsider, when I look at people that maybe they won't come to a group meeting, but they're still going to go to work, right? And again, that's a choice. And so I had made a decision early on when I learned these concepts that Primerica was more important than my job. Yes, my job paid my bills, and I needed it for to survive. And I get that with a lot of people in here and people that aren't here and people that are watching. Okay, but what I started to figure out was when I was working at the bank, they were giving me $12 an hour. Now you might be in the room, you might be getting paid $50 an hour. Okay. But whatever it is, that the amount of money that they were giving me, I was spending that time, I was getting that money, but I would never get anything back for those hours spent. So at a job, I was spending my time. If I worked 10 hours a day, that 10 hours was gone, right? Now I would get compensated for it, but usually when you're getting compensated for your time and you're getting paid for time and not performance, it's just enough to get by, right? It's just enough to put the money in your 401k and have, a little life, right? But what I started to figure out was when I came to Primerica, I was investing my time. I didn't get paid for the time that I was here, but it was an investment of my time to learn a new skill. Does that make sense? It was an investment of my time. I mean, I think about what we're going to be going over today. Jen is going to talk about how to go through the insurance quadrant based on Sheila's request, right? We're going to go through the insurance quadrant. I mean, insurance sales, Shaq sent out that article and we got that from Bruce. It's booming right now. People need an agent. People need direction. They're just going online. They're buying God knows what, right? What if someone goes online and buys a 10-year term and then they get sick in 2 years and now they're stuck with only 8 years to go on their term because no one told them, don't necessarily go for the cheapest, go for the longest with an adequate amount of coverage. People don't know what they're doing, right? They need us right now. We're going to teach you insurance sales, how to teach people how to get the right type of insurance for the right amount, right? And we get paid a lot of money for that. If you invest time here, we're going to teach you how to make $500 to $1,000 an hour. What better investment of time? Or I can go to work. I can stand at the teller line, right? I'm rewinding, thinking about who I was when I first started. I can hand out cash for $12 an hour, and they paid me for my time. I never get that time back. When I come to Primerica, if I'm sitting in the audience, the hour that I spend in today can basically pay me back for the next 20 years. Maybe she goes over something and it helps you make an adjustment in the field, and that can potentially pay you for 20 years. So 1 hour investment in time can pay you for 20 years. That's what an investment is. It's a delayed reaction. It's a delayed benefit, right? It's a delayed payout. But what most people want is instant gratification. If I spend that hour at Nike, they're going to pay me right now for that hour. It's an immediate satisfaction, but usually things that give you immediate results are not as good as the long-term results. Does that make sense? So it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in a new skill. You think about it, man. How much has changed right now with the economy? How much is about to change? Someone was telling me yesterday that who was I with? I was with somebody, and we went to this, I can't even remember. We went to some cafe, right? And we had some, it was in Tyson's. So had lunch there, and my friend talked to the guy at the front. He goes, "Are you guys slowing down? I mean, the line's not as long." And he goes, "Yeah, I mean, all the offices are now working from home, so a lot of people aren't coming in for lunch." And he said, one of my friends, and then he brought up another story. He said, one of my friends is responsible for taking care of elderly people, and they told him that he can't work for the next 2 weeks, but they'll pay him. But after 2 weeks, they may have to just completely let him go because he's working with potential high-risk people as far as the virus. And if he gives it to them, that's a very dangerous thing. This guy's going to be out of work, right? If hotels are not getting business, they got to lay people off. If, Delta announced, we are going to reduce our flights by 60%. That means that's people that are not going to get paid, right? I know a lot of NBA players, they're stepping up and trying to pay the people at the stadiums. But if the game's not going on, the people at the concession stands that are getting paid whatever they're getting paid, they don't get to work, right? And it's going to be this ripple effect. And we have this unbelievable opportunity where people are, think about this. The economy, they're saying it's 100% now we're going to go into a recession. Because people are going to spend less money. There's going to be, the GDP cannot grow in this environment is what they're saying. GDP determines whether there's a recession. So they're saying that if we have 2 negative quarters consecutively, of negative GDP, we're going into a recession. So the announcement is coming that we're going into a recession, yet the article that we sent out is saying that our industry, the demand is going up. Think about that. People just come here. They're sitting in that room. They're like, "Oh, what's this? Yeah, another meeting. They want me to sell something. Got to get a license. They want me to pay something." And then, imagine what they're walking away from. But in times like this, we're strategizing. How can we make more money? How can we expand our reach? If we can't meet with you one-on-one, right, or in person, we're going to do it over Zoom. We're going to use technology. It's so awesome. This is such an awesome investment of your time when you come to these things. So if you're watching or if you're here, good job, man. These are the types of decisions that are going to pay off. So you can be one of the few in the future that get to retire and have an awesome life and hopefully have your own business and have passive income, So we're going to go over those things today. I'm going to go over some things regarding the kitchen table appointment, just some conversations that I have in the field. But first, I want to bring Jen up, and then she's going to go through the insurance quadrant, okay? So the way that the presentation works is it addresses every insurance scenario. There's only 4 insurance scenarios when we go and we see people. Either they have no insurance, which is the most common, or they have insurance through their job, and they think that that is sufficient, or they have the wrong kind of insurance, which is cash value, so universal life, variable life, whole life, right? Or they already have term. That's it. Those are the only things that can happen. You have it through your job, you don't have it at all, you have the wrong kind, or you already have term, and we got to break it down and we got to do a comparison. So usually when she goes through her commentary, when she goes through her presentation, it's a lot of commentary. This time what I want her to do is go through bullet points to show you, first I talk about this, then I talk about this, then I talk about this, then I go to that, then I click this one, so you guys can take notes on what to do in order, and then you can fill in the blanks on your own, in a sense. right? But if you can explain to people this quadrant, notice if you pay attention to the Telegram messages, she's getting a sale. I mean, you're averaging every couple of days, maybe every 3 days, she's posting a sale. And the reason why is because she's that good at this right here, right? When you go in the field a lot, you start to figure out a lot of people have the same questions, same concerns, and you have an offensive approach where you don't even have to wait for their questions. You're answering them all before you get them. That's when you close, right? When you're still getting a lot of objections, it means you're not doing a great job at overcoming them up front, and that takes experience, and that's what we're going to hear today, right? And then I'll come up afterwards, and I'm going to go over a few conversations that I have in the field with people in regards to securities, insurance, and things like that, okay? So how many people you got here today?
One. I think 30. $29.
29. You know, this business is leadership. That's what it is. It's not sales. It's not how many people you know. It's not how many friends you have, right? It's a leadership business. If you can put people in a room, and I gave a long speech about this, was it last week when I talked about this? You know, if you can put people in a room, that is the most valuable skill that you can have in this business. Again, you can have friends, but can you have followers, right? And in this type of environment, to be consistent, you know, and I sent a picture out to my team that your team was here early. I know you take a lot of pride in that. They set up the whole room for us. They're coming from the furthest, and they did all the work for us. I mean, there's something to this. Where not even the current environment that we're in can stop those types of numbers. I mean, that is really awesome. And what did you say? Just, I wanted them to hear it. What do you tell your team? How many quarters?
23 quarters in a row. I asked them if they're competitive.
Okay, 23 quarters in a row, Morgan, she's won the leadership award, which is top turnout at the Fast Start School. How many years is that?
5.5 and a quarter.
Okay, so 6 years in a row, no one can beat her with how many people she has at a Fast Start School. I think that's pretty cool, right? So just hitting on all cylinders, making money, producing, having the most people, Fast Start School, all of those different things, you know, for January.
Thank you. Just quadrant. That's good. Hey guys, how you doing? Good. So I'm not gonna go over transitions or anything. If you've been in the field with me, there's a recording on my KT somewhere. So if you want, you can ask some of my teammates, but run it through your upline first, please. Right? One of the things that I like to reiterate is never reinvent the wheel. I only know what I'm doing in the field because I've gotten a lot of moving parts from people that know what they're doing. So it came from people that knew better than me when I was in your position, if you're kind of trying to figure things out still too, right? So don't try to reinvent the wheel, follow the presentation, don't go off the presentation, because if you do, as soon as you do, right, Aaliyah, it doesn't go good for you, right? You don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going, right? You don't know what direction you're going. So when you sit down with a family, it's easier to get them to move forward doing business with you when you know why you're meeting with them, okay? Have a purpose. You're not just going to present just to present because this is not social services, it's financial services, okay? And then one of the books that really helped me a lot that my trainer went over was How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. I explained about it yesterday in advanced training for those who were there. And I went over that book, but I didn't just read it, I went over the exercises. It's not just good enough to read, you have to go through the exercises so that you can become a pro in the field. I was tired of getting recognized for just recruiting and attendance, and I wanted to get recognized for premium one day. And so I was like, that's it. I'm gonna learn how to make more money by myself, right? And then so I can be a better trainer for my team. And before I was training people, I would always set the KTs for my trainer to go on while I was going on my own solo appointments. And so that I could just practice presenting, and then also hopefully, there's nothing bad that happens when you get in front of somebody, okay? So today we're gonna go over the quadrants. I'm just gonna go over step by step what I do. I'm not gonna actually have the dialogue with Samir said, okay? So again, if there's a recording, yep. But how do I transition to the quadrant is the question. So when we get to this page, we always ask Mr. and Mrs. Client on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate your desire to become property protected, debt-free, and financially independent, Stephanie? An 8, great. Well, these are the 4 main concerns that everybody has when it comes to their financial house. 1, always debt elimination. You just want to get out the fastest way possible. 2nd, college savings or just savings for the future of your children. 3, retirement options outside of what you may or may not have now. Because if you're off track for your goals, would you rather find out now or 30 years from now? And then last but not least, protecting your income properly with life insurance. Because when you build a house, what's the strongest part of a house, Stephanie? The foundation, right? And if you hire me to build your dream house somewhere and you say, Jen, I want to be low budget, I don't want to spend a lot, please don't use a lot of money to build my house. And I turn around and I say, okay, Steph, I'm going to use the cheapest, lowest quality material to build your dream house. Are you going to let me do that? No, because any house built on a weak, cheap foundation, what happens to the rest of it? On your family, doesn't it? So can you see why we always target talking about income protection first and taking care of that before everything else? Okay, great. And then we go next. You have a clicker? Oh, thanks. So how much coverage do you currently have, Steph? Just say them. We're going to pretend she has no life insurance.
Ask me.
Huh?
Ask me.
Okay. So how much life insurance coverage do you have right now?
Right now, I don't have any.
Okay. So I'm going to go over life insurance through your job just in case you find out you have some. Because Stephanie still has to learn how to explain this, okay? You probably know how it works already. That's how I transition into the employer coverage. Once we go into the employer coverage, again, I'm not going to do the dialogue. If you go into the employer coverage, you have to go through employer coverage, or else, if you don't do it now, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt later. Because people are always 100% going to turn around if you don't go over it. When they get a more stable job in their mind, with better benefits in their mind, they're going to just think, especially with the government, oh, you know, I already have life insurance through my job. It's cheaper, right? And
or right then they're going to say, I'll check with my job. I think they have it.
Exactly, that too, right? They might just shoot you like later on after you try to, you know.
So this is one of the ways you're overcoming objection before you get it.
Yes.
Right? By just going over a group first, killing it,
yes.
even if they don't have it, and that way it doesn't come back in the end or later.
The way the presentation is made is to overcome objections before it comes up, and to give you ways to overcome it. But while they're thinking about the objection in their mind, they're not saying it to you. They won't always say it, but because you're saying it, you're attacking it right there. You're knocking it down one by one. Make sense, guys?
So what's the transition again between, and really this is for me, okay? So when they say I don't have any, right? What's your transition to go into that the quadrant?
I say, okay, so Samir, I'm gonna go through life insurance or coverage through your job. You probably, in case you find out you have some, and if you do, you probably know how it works already, but I just need to do this for Stephanie so that she can learn how to explain it, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Cool. So I go into that. So you have to pretend that there's an attorney at hand. And every time your notepad should be next to you, you should hold up your notepad as if this is the group life insurance coverage or certificate, okay? So Jenny or Samir, let's pretend this is your coverage through your job, this right here, and you have a family attorney also. And you ask Mr. Smith, can you please review this document for me and my family, because if God forbid something happens to me, this is the only thing that my kids have to depend on, and my family has to depend on. So this is a really important document. You have to say that, or else they're going to start fighting you on it.
Okay, so the way that I would write this in my notes as I do this real time, right, is I would say start with group insurance and then I wrote attorney conversation. Because you're not just going over group, but you're making it into kind of like a story, right? Yes. So you're saying, guys, imagine if this is your life insurance policy from your job, right? And I took this to an attorney, and then you follow suit with that conversation.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So start that part again.
Okay. So you're gonna go through group life insurance because you're gonna have to attack that first. And so the whole presentation is all stories. So stories sell, facts tell. So when you tell a story pretending that they have an attorney, they are now involved in that situation with you, and they are now actually in that mindset, if that makes sense. And if they were to bring it to an attorney, once you start reading this, which I'm not going to read all of it to you guys, once you read it out loud to them, it's like you're the attorney reading it to them, and now they're not going to fight you anymore. Because what are you going to do? Fight an attorney on a contract? You're not going to do that, right? So go next.
No, start the attorney thing again.
Oh, you wanted me to do it again? Okay. So I thought you just wanted to do the video. Yeah. So Samir, so I'm going to go over life insurance through your job, just in case you find out you have some. And if you do, you might know how it works. But I just still need to do this for Stephanie so that she knows how to explain it, okay? Yeah. So let's pretend this is your document through your job, and I'll zoom in just in case you can't see it. But this is your document through your job, okay? Let's pretend this is what it is. And you also have a family attorney. And you take this to your family attorney, Samir, and you say, Mr. Smith, can you please review this document for me? Because if God forbid something happens to me, this is the only thing my family has to depend on. So this is a really important document. So then you click through and you read it, right? You have to emphasize the biggest issue that everyone has to understand. The biggest issue with life insurance through your job is what, Aaliyah? Who knows? Luis, what's the biggest issue with life insurance through your job? It's not yours. You don't own it. You don't own it. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million coverage or $1 coverage. You don't own it. If they wanted to cancel it, they wanted to, change it at any time, because you don't own it, they can do it. Just like you rent an apartment. You got to get out. Sorry, right? So, yeah, so you just read that. Keep going. Then you read that. Read it word for word. Do not put in your own words. That's very important. Read it word for word. So, can the certificate be amended? Yes, we retain the right to amend the certificate at any time without your consent. Termination, your coverage ends on the earliest of the following: the date the group policy ends or the date the group policy is amended, so you are no longer eligible. And so this is not our client right here, but this proves the same point, and I play the video. If you do not play the video, you will not close. If you don't play the video, you won't close. And you'll be wasting an hour of your time. If you're at a 35% contract, you just threw $350 out the window. If you're at a 50% contract, you just threw $500 out the window. Willingly. You have to go through the video or else you won't close.
Let's
right?
watch the video.
Okay, so you...
Well, she knew her husband was dying. Of course, that was hard enough. Now, the widow of a longtime Plano teacher is dealing with an insurance headache that started with a miscommunication and 11 days. Channel 8 Steve Stoller explains.
He loved teaching those kids.
Robert Williams taught math at Plano West Senior High and coached the hockey club there, too. Last summer, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and underwent chemotherapy. Though weak, he went to teach on the first day of school. It didn't go well.
He said he wasn't able to keep up. Sometimes the kids would ask him questions and he'd have to think about it.
Williams took sick time. His wife says he went to the district's Human Resources Department to make sure there were no issues with his life insurance policy, because the district had just changed companies.
They said, look, you signed up on time, you're paying your premium, everything's fine. Go home, get well.
2 weeks later, Williams died. Susan Williams filed a claim to collect on his insurance policy, but it was denied. The policy required the longtime teacher to work one day, September 1st, or any day after September 1st. Robert Williams was there August 21st, 11 days too early.
Had they had told him that he had to work one day, he would have gone in and worked a day, because then his policy would have been in effect and he wouldn't have had any problems.
Susan Williams says her husband went to his grave thinking his family would be taken care of. They have a son with special needs.
It hurts. And if they have done it to my husband, don't think for 1 minute they're not going to do it to some other teacher that, works forever in the school district and then something happens.
Plano ISD Superintendent Richard Matkins sent us a written statement late this afternoon. District leaders say their old and new insurance carriers reviewed the Williams claim along with an independent reviewer, but the outcome did not change. So the Williams still cannot collect on a $250,000 life insurance policy. Live in Frisco, Steve Stoller, Channel 8 News.
That's crazy, isn't it, Samir?
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is that the attorney's going to say, don't ever, ever solely depend on your life insurance or your job to take care of your family. Because when it comes to your family, how much risk do you want to take?
None.
So can you see why we always recommend you privatize your life insurance so that you own it?
Yeah.
Or you control it? And that's exactly how I transitioned to, there's two ways to privatize. There's either term or there's cash value. And then I just go back to the quadrant.
Okay, hold on.
Mm-hmm. Good, you guys?
Great.
All right, so go to group, attorney conversation, imagine this is your life insurance policy,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to your family attorney and you say, this is the most important document that's protecting my family. Can you read it with me? Is that what you said?
Can you please go over this document with me?
Can you please go over the document with me? Then we start highlighting the things in there that are showing we don't own it, it can be amended, it can be terminated,
Without
it can
consent.
exclude us basically,
Mhm.
and then we show the video
Mhm.
of, a potential exclusion that they didn't know about.
Yes.
And then at the end, you say, pretty much your attorney will say, never solely depend on your group life insurance,
Mhm.
okay? So can you see, now this is the question, can you see, what I'm just repeating what you said, can you see why privatizing is the best?
Yeah. Can you
Option.
see why we always recommend you privatize?
Okay, can you see why we always recommend privatizing?
Mhm.
And then your transition to get into explaining the other insurances is there's two ways to privatize.
Mhm.
You can go
Term.
term or cash value. Okay.
Yep. That's it. Very simple. And so then I know other people have different orders that they want to go through. My order that I go through is what Shaq went through with me. So I ran it through him, and he says just don't change it, right? Because it works. So that's all you guys have to know, right? Term life insurance is just pure life insurance. It's like your auto insurance, your medical insurance. You just pay it as you go. Simple. Cash value life insurance is permanent life insurance, known as the whole life, the universal, variable, different names, right? And these policies are generally 8 to 10 times more expensive because you're not just paying for insurance, you're also paying for quote unquote savings account, right? Just like this. But they call it cash value for a reason. They can't legally call it savings. So then I go into cash value, and I have
So you explain the difference between the two.
general
Okay, one
difference.
is like car insurance, you just pay the premium, you get it back, no bells and whistles, it's very cheap.
Uh-huh.
And then the other kind is cash value. This is going to be 8 to 10 times more because
You're paying for not just insurance, but also a savings component. And I do it exactly like this. I do a lot of visuals so that they can see, right? Savings, insurance and savings, but it's not really called savings, it's called cash value. They can't legally call it savings in the contract, Samir. Because I'm going back to contracts, right? At the end of the day, it's a contract. Not with your agent, but with your company. Your private company, not your job. So then I go through, let's forget about life insurance really quick. Let's pretend you're going to choose between two banks.
so at this point now you're clicking on cash value.
Yep. So you click on cash value, and then you put life insurance on the side, and then you put them in another storyline and say, let's pretend you are picking between two banks. And you have to excuse yourself if you know you're about to ask very rhetorical questions. So I excuse myself and I say, Samir, these questions may be very rhetorical, but just bear with me, okay? So now he knows, he's going to know the answer. It's like, okay, all right, cool. Yeah, of course I would do that. Of course I would pick A. Of course I'd pick A. Do you want me to go over this?
Quick.
Okay, so when you put your money in the bank, would you rather your money have a higher rate of return or a lower rate of return? Samir?
Higher.
Higher. When you take your money out of the bank, would you rather be able to just take it where it's liquid, it belongs to you? Or would you rather your money belongs to the bank and you have to borrow it, then pay it back with interest to the bank?
It belongs to me, it's liquid.
Absolutely. And you know how some families, they fight over money when somebody passes away?
Yeah.
Would you rather your money still go to your families or your survivors? Or would you rather your money be kept by the bank and they say, we don't want your family to fight, Samir. We'll just do you a big favor. We'll keep your money. That way they don't have to fight.
Yeah. money to my family.
Of course. Now, anybody who is being asked those questions that directly, Samir, they're always going to pick Bank A. But when it comes to when you deal with somebody who's just a life insurance agent, for the most part, they always are try to get you to Bank B. And then I tell a story about my aunt. You guys can tell a cash value story about one of your clients, right? I feel like stories sell 100% of the time, so the more stories, the better. And of course, you incorporate questions. So I tell about my aunt and how she got sold an $800, $33 a month policy. And now the client's like, what, right? She thought it was like a retirement plan inside. That's what the agent sold to her. We got her down to $140 a month and saved now she saves $700 a month. She can put that back into her Roth IRA and college plan for my nephew.
Okay. So either way with this is describing the savings component in a whole life policy, and we're just kind of comparing it to a bank. So we're saying, forget about insurance. This is how a bank works. I mean, imagine these are two banks. You can get a high rate of return on your money or low. Your money can be liquid, or you have to borrow it, or your family gets your money, or the bank keeps your money. Which bank are you going to bank with, right? Of course, A, right? So if you're just asked like that, you're going to pick A, but every life insurance agent is going to they're going to try to sell you B, right? Now, if you were already in Bank A, is there anything I could say to get you to Bank B?
No.
No, right? So that's a little question I had in there as well for banks and bridges.
Yep.
This is, when people say, what this is overcoming is, wouldn't it be better to have a life insurance policy where I get something back, or it builds up equity? This kills it. You're getting a low rate of return. You got to borrow that money, and when you die, you don't get it. It overcomes everything for cash value.
Yep, exactly. So you're just asking those questions, and I ask, would you ever knowingly put your money into an account like this? Client always says, no. The key word is knowingly, right? So you ever run into anybody that tries to offer you a life insurance policy with a savings inside, Samir, run the other way. They're just trying to offer you Bank B. That's it, right? Boom, term. Then you go to term. So I tell that story about my aunt, and I feel like it's great to tell a story that has to do with you reinvesting the difference for the client, teaching them how to buy term and invest the difference, because it transitions perfectly into term. And that way, when you read Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey's, can you go to it, Thomas? When you read Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey's quotes here, right? Susie says, most of us only need a life insurance policy for a set period of time until the toddlers are adults and supporting themselves, or until we have time to build up our own assets. That's the same thing as what you just said, but through your story. But
so with cash value, you're just going over. It's not the bridges part; it's just the banks part.
Yeah, I'm just doing the banks part because I'm trying to keep it short.
Okay.
And
what was the transition from banks over to term? I know I'm really right now.
No, that's fine. So when you
go back, Thomas, go back.
When you go through Bank A and Bank B, and now they agree that they only want Bank A, and I ask, would you ever knowingly put your money into an account like this, right? I tell a story about my aunt, and then I say, would you ever knowingly put your money into an account like this?
Okay, so the question is, would you ever
knowingly put your money into an account like this? They always say, no.
Would you ever knowingly put your money?
Yeah, that was actually a question in our old presentation, so I didn't make up that question, guys. That's from an old presentation that all the RVPs put together for before we had this version. So I thought that it was a really good question to keep asking, because the keyword is knowingly, right? Yeah. So if it was a different scenario where they have a cash value policy, Samir, I do go over the video. But in this case, if they don't have a cash value policy, I don't have to kill it as much. I just have to reiterate it and just make sure they understand. If an agent ever came up to you and said, hey, let me offer you a life insurance policy with a savings inside, run the other way, because they're just trying to offer you Bank B. Okay? So when we go to term.
So now let's just talk about the other one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I just tell the story and then say the other way is, so the other way is term, which we believe in 100% of the time. The other way to privatize is term life insurance, which we believe in 100% of the time. Because have you ever heard about Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey?
Yeah.
Okay. So I love Susie. Susie says most of us only need a life insurance policy, and I just read it, right, for a set period of time until the toddlers are adults and supporting themselves, or until we have time to build up our own assets. Okay? So what does that mean, Mr. and Mrs. Client? If you have the money in cash, let's say you have $300,000 in cash, would you really have to pay for a $300,000 life insurance policy and you have no young kids, no dependents? Well, what life insurance company would ever teach you how to get out of the need for paying for life insurance? Right? What life insurance company would ever teach you how to get out of the need for paying for life insurance? And that's how so you go to the next slide and you say, however, if you knew that term was best for you and you go to these other companies out here, right, that offer the cash value component, they can offer you a term, but a very low quality term. So this is how their term works. One, it always converts to cash value because they're going to try to convert to cash value because when you did business with them, do you think they're going to help you save enough money on the side so one day you don't have to pay them anymore? They always say what? No, right? So they'll try to get you then. Two, the very unaffordable renewal rates, right? At State Farm, there's a policy here, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that goes from $130 a month to over $4,000 a month. Would you ever pay that, even for a mortgage?
$4,000 a month.
Yeah, you go to it, right? 1660 to 55,000. Yeah, so only if they have a term, I'll show this.
Okay, so industry term, which is our competitors. So let's talk about the difference between, even if you go to term and even if you go to an agent and you want term, they're not always going to
give you the best term. It's going to be very low quality.
Term, okay, it's going to be potentially low quality. And this is great because if you're sitting down with intelligent people, sometimes you'll realize that they're going to potentially shock you, right? You're introducing a new concept to them, so they don't know, right? Are you the right one or whatever? So if you don't go over this stuff, they're going to shock you. So she's overcoming everything that the client may say after she leaves, or if she doesn't get the sale right there, or right there at the table, what they could potentially say. So she's like, look, you can go ask for term. They're never going to give you a good one. They're going to give you a low quality one. It converts to cash value. So the policy I just showed you that's so bad, the only option for a lot of these terms is it's going to become that at some point, right? Unaffordable renewal rates. So if you did want to keep it for whatever reason, maybe you don't need it, but you wanted to keep it, you can see that it's very unfair what they charge you at the end. And sometimes you have to reprove your health, right? Whereas with us,
yeah, so, and then even if you wanted to pay that, you would have to reprove your health with these companies but what's the issue there? What's the probability that you're going to be healthier 20 years from now than you are 20 years ago?
Very low.
Very low. So we call ourselves a one-trick pony. So now I'm going into offering our benefits and telling them why we are the best term in the industry. Okay, we are the only company that offers term 100% of the time. I think there's another company, but they offer to like religious people or Christians, right? So I don't think everybody in here is a Christian. I don't know, right? Just joking. So, so Primerica term. So we call ourselves a one-trick pony, Mr. and Mrs. Client. So have you ever heard about that saying?
Yes.
Okay, if you pay for a show, the pony only has one trick, it better be a good trick, right?
Yeah.
So in a good way, we call ourselves a one-trick pony because when it comes to life insurance, we only offer term, so we have the best term in the industry, okay? So I only go over a couple of them. I don't read all of it, you guys. One, we have a terminal illness rider up to 70%. Just to keep it easy on the numbers, if you have 100,000 of coverage, 70% is 70 grand, right, Mr. and Mrs. Client? So if you get terminally ill, such as cancer, you can't work or make money, can you? And sometimes the difference between living and dying is what? Money. So if you have 70 grand at your hand, hopefully you don't need it, but it's good to have that benefit in hand, isn't it?
Yes.
We're also rated A+ on AM's Best, third-party rating company. Only 15% of companies get that rating. But remember 9/11 when the planes hit the Twin Towers? Out of 200 companies, more or less, that exist in life insurance, only 3 paid out. We were one of those 3. We only believe in one policy per family because haven't you ever heard some of those families out here that they kind of brag? Samir, and they say, oh, we have 5 policies, we're good. That's not good. That means you're paying 5 different policy fees as opposed to one consolidated one where you have more room to save on the side. Isn't that what you want?
Yeah.
And then 93, it's actually 95 now, you guys, but 93% of our claims are paid within 14 days, 2 days on record. Because what we do that other companies don't do, to my knowledge, that I have seen, we ask for your beneficiary and emergency contacts to make sure they know who we are, our process, who to call. So one of my clients, again, I'm going into a story once I tell that fact, because you can't just talk. You have to tell stories too, right? So I share my story about my client. If you don't have a personal story because maybe you haven't been here long enough or gone through enough appointments, right? Or even had a death happen in one of your client base, I always borrow somebody else's story until I had mine. I always borrowed it, and I learned word for word the story so that I could tell exactly like Shaq, as much like Samir, as much as possible, right? So one of my clients, Samir, him and his wife, they separated after 3 months of me meeting them, and they were getting ready to divorce. They separated their policies. They don't share children. So I met his new beneficiary, his daughter. That was November 2017. I just met her, gave her my information, the company's information, went over our process. She put everything into her black box. The next month in December, he passed away of a heart attack on the job at Safeway. Within 2 hours, she called my cell phone. She never, ever had to call 1-800-PRIMERICA. She never even had to walk out of the mailbox to mail anything directly to our company. And then on top of that, instead of her waiting for the paperwork to come in the next 10 business days, I got the paperwork emailed to me and got to that same exact day. Picked it up 4 days later. We got $100,000 paid out, no questions asked. He was my client for less than 6 months. And I delivered that claim to her and helped her put some money towards the kids' college, or her 6-year-old daughter's college. Big deal, isn't it, Samir? So can you see why you should have life insurance with Primerica?
Yeah. So in the Primerica term, unlike the other one, you don't have to reprove your health, guaranteed conversion, fair renewal rates, terminal illness rider, kind of explain that, increasing benefit rider, and then you tell the 9/11 story. So how many insurance companies were involved in 9/11?
At that time when I was reading, it was 200, more or less.
So 200 life insurance companies were involved because, unfortunately, 2,500 people, I think, around that passed away. So 200 insurance companies were involved. Only 3 paid out claims. We were one of them. And then you also you tell a death claim story, which...
Yeah, one policy per family, then a death claim story.
Yeah, okay, good. All right.
Yeah, because I'm also trying to figure out about referrals later, because what I found out with referrals, some people, they say, oh, this person has several policies, they're good. So I overcome it before it comes up with the referrals. Yeah, I'm putting a seed out there. So from my experience, because I was tired of getting that objection when I was trying to get referrals, I just overcome it here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once I get that commitment and I say, can't you see why you should have life insurance with Primerica? That's a close question. That's a closing question. It's a test close. That's what you call it. That's what Shaq calls it. It's a test close. Because you're just testing if it's worth it to move forward or not, right? Then you get to the real closing questions where you go to no coverage. So you click on no coverage. So wait, go back, Thomas. So you're going to go over group life insurance, okay? You're going to go over group life insurance. Then if they have no coverage or group life insurance coverage. Then you're going to go into cash value. Then you go into term. So you're going to kill each one of those subject matters. And then you're going to go to no coverage.
Okay, so this is the close now.
Yes.
Before is all presenting, overcoming everything, and this is where you're going to get a check now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So no coverage. So then all you do, you guys, is just read the questions. That's all you do. So currently, usually when a responsible family like yourself, Samir, or parent, okay, doesn't have any life insurance on their own or outside of their job, usually it's due to one of these following 3 reasons. You didn't think you needed it, you didn't think you could afford it, or you just never got around to it. Which one of those describes you?
Just never got around to it.
Okay, we can get around to it today. However, is protecting your family important enough to you to where you'd be willing to begin setting aside some money every month to take care of this?
Yes.
And if I could put together, or we could put together a program that would be affordable for you, it fits within your budget, Samir. So I go a little bit off here, right? It fits within your budget, Samir. It makes sense to you. We answer all your questions. Is there any reason you wouldn't implement that program?
No. So what are some of the things that people say? Let's go, first of all, on this slide, this is extremely important. When I first started the business, I was taught those questions up there and I memorized them because if you think about it, need, afford, get around. Those are the only 3 reasons why people don't buy insurance. So you gotta sniff out the reason why, right? You don't want to start talking about why they need it if they feel they need it, but they just thought they couldn't afford it, right? So this is a great question, even when you're prospecting, when you're talking to someone in your family, when it comes up in conversation. Those are amazing questions. Now, which one best describes you? I said, okay, I didn't get around to it. That gives her the green light that we need to get around to it now, right? So now she's asking, is protecting your family important enough that you'd be willing to set aside some money each month to take care of this? What are some of the things that you hear when you ask that question?
This particular question?
Yeah.
They say,
obviously they can say, yes, it's important enough to
Yeah.
me. Do they ever say, I don't know, my budget, anything?
this is, that I want to get that next, on the next one,
Okay,
actually.
so people say, yes, it's important enough to me, move on.
Yep.
If we can put together a program that would be affordable for you, and she said, if it fits in your budget,
It makes
answer all your
sense.
questions, makes sense, is there any reason you wouldn't be able to implement that program?
And Ginny and I just had this, oh, well, we're really tight on budget, we're paycheck to paycheck. And it's usually the money. It's
Okay.
usually
So the
nothing
money
else.
issue can come up.
Mhm.
Chandel, I think when you ask this question, you say tonight, right?
Yeah, today.
Okay, today. So if we can put together a program that'd be affordable for you, is there a reason you wouldn't be able to implement that program today?
Mhm. You can answer like that too.
Boom, right? So you can ask that as well. It's just a different variation.
Yeah. If it's a qualified appointment, okay, no insurance, young kids, there's a need there, you're usually going to close. Because you're where the fish are. Like Shaq says, you're never going to take your kid to go fishing with no fish in the pond, right? So you're right there in the market. The money is sitting at the table. But what they say their money, what I get is, if they say, oh, well, I got to think about it, right? You know it's the money, but now you got to narrow it down, like Samir said. Okay, well, what is it exactly do you have to think about? Is it the fact that making sure your family's okay, God forbid something happen to you? Do you have to think about that? And they say, no, I definitely want to do that, right? Is it something that I did? No, not at all. It's just, they'll tell you right up there because you're not going to a hard close yet. This is just something slight. And they'll say, we're just really paycheck to paycheck. So now, when they say something like that, remember, if you've seen the presentation multiple times or you've gone through it like you should, at the compound interest slide from way back in the presentation, they already told you they waste $30 a day. So, and they told you if they were tied to a lie detector test, they waste $30 a day. They're not lying, right? $30. Okay, so usually on a regular basis, 30 days in a month, 5 days a week, or whatever it is, it's $30 a day. Yeah, definitely, without thinking. $20 without thinking, easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the money's not going to be a concern because even if they say that now, they admitted earlier that they were wasting money at a rate of $30 a day, 5 days a week.
Yes.
That's $600. 30 days is $900.
Right.
So there's some room in there from the money that they waste. So how do you bring that up when they bring up money now, but earlier they told you that they waste money? What do you say then?
So they said, we're just really paycheck to paycheck. We can't put anything more on top of what we're already doing. And I say, okay, well, Samir, I definitely understand that. Samir, I'm really lower volume in the KT guys, because when I ask more direct questions, you have to be more lower tone, because you're trying to ask direct questions that could potentially offend them. They could get defensive. You're trying to just kind of reel back, right?
Yeah.
Scale back. So I'm just talking out loud because of the recording, all right? But so, Samir, I definitely understand exactly how you feel, because that's how me and my mother felt too, the same way. But what we found is that we were not trying to put anything more on top of our budget. We were just trying to rearrange it. And what I mean by that is, earlier, remember, you had mentioned that you do spend, without thinking, $20 a day, if not 5 days a week. That's easily $600 in a month. So I don't want you to put $600 or anything more than what you're spending or already using. I want you to just put some of that $600 aside, right? Just a piece of it, a fraction of it, so that you can make sure your family is okay. Is that fair?
Yes.
And you just, and most people, when you break it down like that, they're going to be like, oh, I never thought of it like that.
Okay, so this is a classic sales approach, all right? It's called feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found. And she used it on us, and it works, okay? And it was very subtle. And she said, I understand how you feel. I felt that way before, but what I found. It's in every book for sales, right? And she did it very subtly. You can't tell that she's using it, but I picked up on it because I'm familiar with that. So, when you put yourself in their seat, I mean, that now you're on their side. It's not you versus them. A lot of times sales, it gets you versus me. No. Let's get it. Hey, I understand how you feel. I felt that way with my own parents when I was getting into the business. But what I found is this is amazing. We're not trying to add more into your budget. We just want to rearrange the budget. So earlier, very softly, you did tell me that you guys waste $600 a month. Do you think that that's fair if we could just take a little bit of that and cut down on our wastage to implement one of these top priority things to protect your family? Awesome.
You break it down like that, they're like, oh, okay, And if you have a husband and wife, they're going to start talking amongst each other, which is great, right? If Fatima say yeah, right? So then you move forward. So I ask this again. Once I overcome that, I do ask this again, okay? So if, again, Samir, if we could put together an affordable program, that again would be affordable for you within that budget, it makes sense to you, we do answer all your questions. Is there any reason why you wouldn't implement that?
No.
Okay, so just ask it again. I just want to make sure, because I'm not moving forward until I get a go, right? I don't want to be a pushy salesperson. I'm going to get your okay to move forward. I'm not going to give you something you don't think you need. I want you to understand you need this, right? So, and a lot of times if somebody is pushing back at any point in the presentation, and we're getting into the close, right? I'll just say, hey, I got this from Ian, actually. He didn't mean to teach me this, but he says it in his KT. And I'll say, hey, Samir, I don't mean to be pushy.
Ian Proctor?
No, Ian Smith. It was a long time ago. Years ago, he was like, yeah, I did this. We were just going over a KT. So I'll say, hey, Samir, we get over all of this. I don't mean to be pushy, Samir, but I hope that you understand from my standpoint where I've delivered claims, not to be a grim reaper, but I just don't want to be the irresponsible one and at least not communicate this need to you. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And I'm saying I'm the irresponsible one if I don't communicate it. I'm not telling them they're irresponsible. I'm putting it on me, right? So that they know I'm just trying to do my job. That's it.
So is there anything that they can say where you would just shut it down right here?
Didn't see a need for it. If I already went through group life insurance, they'll go back to that. But that's because you're asking in a way where, why don't you have life insurance now? Because you didn't see a need for it, and you're asking about the past tense. They'll say, yeah, I didn't see a need for it, and I'll say, why? Because you had coverage through your job? Yeah. And they'll say it like that if they kind of understand how job life insurance works now. And I'll say, okay, well, now that you know how life insurance through any job works, do you still feel the same way? That's all I say.
Right. So there's no roadblocks that you're getting here that prevent you from going forward.
No.
Because what I see is a lot of amateurs, they're getting objection after objection, they're not overcoming it, yet they're still compelled to get to the quote and all that, and then they wonder why they didn't get the sale. It's because they're not getting the right indicators going forward.
Right.
You're saying if you do it this way, it's going to be green lights all the way.
Yeah, exactly. Don't try to talk too much here. Just ask the questions, overcome the objection, move forward. That's it. It's as simple as that. And again, if you read the book I recommended, because it was recommended to me, you will have an easier time in the field. The KT is not hard. You just have to learn the words in the right order. That's it. Next. So then you go to dime, right? So the transition, I'm not going to do dime, but the transition between you being able to move forward from no insurance, asking those commitment questions, to dime has anybody ever showed you how much coverage you need? Or how to calculate how much coverage you need? They always say no. And sometimes if you have a really high caliber client, some people will say, yeah, I sat down with somebody before, right? They showed me something. And some people, they'll say, I need $1 million coverage. right? But most times people are going to say no.
So now you're going to get into how much they need, and then what's the range question? Do you ask that up front or after all of this?
What do you mean?
The range, 50 to 100, 100, 100.
Oh, this is after.
Okay.
I'll ask the money commitment ranges after I run through the dime.
Is there a way to do this in 1 minute, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do the dime, but what do you want me to do the
I
dime?
want you to do that.
Okay.
If it's 1 minute.
Okay, I'm going to speed it up, guys, so, watch the video, catch it, okay? So this is an exercise that we use normally to help you calculate the amount of coverage you need, Samir. So if God forbid something happened to you tomorrow, would you want to make sure that all your debts are paid off so that they don't roll down to your kids?
Yes.
And if you had all the money in the world right now and you could write one check just to zero out all your debts, how much would you need to write that check for?
My mortgage too?
Yes.
800,000.
Okay, just write it down. And God forbid something happened to you tomorrow, would you want to make sure your kids, by the way, what are your children's names again?
Jimmy and Susan.
Would you want to make sure Jimmy and Susan's educations are paid for?
Yes.
100%?
Yep.
Put a check mark. Good. We also cover death and final expenses, but the most important is your income protection. Because if God forbid something happened to you tomorrow and you did pass, how much per month would you need to leave behind for Jimmy and Susan to make sure that they maintain the same standard of living? And before you answer, I'll give you some ranges. About $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month, so $3,000 a month or more.
More.
How much more?
5,000.
5,000, okay? So I'm gonna crunch some numbers for you. I'm gonna ask you this question really quick. I know I asked it before, not to be rhetorical, but if something did happen to you tomorrow and you pass, how would you want to make sure that Jimmy and Susan are better off, worse, or at least stay the same?
Better.
And how much per month would you be willing to set aside to help take care of this need? Before you answer, I'm gonna give you some ranges. About 50 to 100, 100 to 150, 150 to 200, or more.
150 to 200.
So if I found something between 150 to 200 a month, that'd be something that would be doable for you.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I crunch some numbers for you. Let me ask you. Then I go into referral questions. He filled out the referrals with the trainee, and then I go into quoting. That's it. Dime, ask the question, better, worse, stay the same, then get the money commitment, then you go into referral talk, and as the trainee is taking the referrals down, because you train the trainee on how to do it, then while the trainee's doing it, you're killing time by making sure that you run the quotes. By the way, what's your birthday? That's it. And then boom. Do you smoke tobacco? Do you use tobacco? Okay, perfect. Do you have needle phobia? Whatever. Right? Yeah.
Very good.
And that's it.
Anybody have questions? So this won't be part of the video, the questions, but any questions you guys have? Maurice, was that good for you?
Absolutely.
Ask.
You guys are doing it just like that?
We get that last part again, like where you go over the money commitment and then like how you walk them through that last part that you went through.
The money commitment?
Yeah.
So after I get the monthly income, right? And he says 5,000 a month. I say, okay, I'm gonna crunch some numbers for you really quick, Samir. And I'm gonna ask this question again. I know I asked it before. But if something not to be rhetorical, but if something did happen to you tomorrow, would you want to make sure that Jimmy and Susan are better off, worse, or at least stay the same? He says better. And how much per month would you be willing, not can, but willing to set aside to help take care of this need? And before you answer, I'll give you some ranges. About 50 to 100, 100 to 150, 150 to 200 or more. He says 150 to 200. Now I have to ask again to confirm it. Because once I start quoting you, you're going to close. Because I'm gonna confirm it now. Right? So
where like I get calls all the time, or I hear stories, people quote and then they don't get the sale. Why did that happen?
Some people are scared to get the check. They're scared to ask for the check. There's an art to asking for the check. You can't be nervous while you're asking for the check. Because if you're nervous, it makes them nervous. And you can't be too excited either, or else they're gonna get nervous. So there's a way where you ask for the check, and if you understand that this person wastes a lot of money and they can put it aside, but they're just giving you an excuse, and you actually care to cover that family, you're gonna come off that type of way. It takes practice and experience. You're not gonna get it right off the bat. I did it. But if you follow along the words behind the words and you have conviction and they see that you care, and you're taking your time and you're not trying to push them to do something quickly, then they'll move forward with you. Eight out of 10 appointments. If you know what you're doing, you're gonna close, right? Average 50%, but that's the ratios on everywhere you go. So yeah, if you're not getting a check, and I also recommend, just like I did with my trainer, when you go in a KT, it doesn't matter how good you are, report your KT to your upline. And go through a dialogue, a play-by-play. You go through verbatim, but not like too wordy. Like, it doesn't matter if they love their kids, because we know everybody loves their kids, okay? Yeah, their kids were great. They were awesome. They're like, they go to school. No. What did you do, right? Okay, presentation. What did you do? Did you go over this? Did you go over that, right? How do you think you did? What did you do good? What did you think you didn't do good? Where do you think you messed up? Where do you think you missed? What do you think you were missing? What do you think, where did you feel hiccups? Let's talk about it. And then if you do that with your trainer, you'll be fine. But some people, they try to go independent too quick and go rogue, and then they start messing up and going a downhill battle. To this day, I still talk to Shaq every single day. There's not one day I don't talk to Shaq. Not one day. Not one day. And I tell him all the time, hey, I just took Aaliyah, I took Stephanie out, I took Alex, I took Camila out. This is how it happened, right? He doesn't really need to help on different areas, but I just need to at least report to him, right? Because there could be some parts where I'm not perfect at yet, and I know there aren't, but it's always a good idea to report back to your upline. If you're not doing that and you're not getting the results you want, then that's your fault, because you decided not to report. Your upline already knows how to make money. You don't, so you have to call your upline more than they call you.
On the quadrant, you were saying, like, if they only have group, you always go through no coverage, like, every time.
Well, if they don't have group, what?
So, like, they just have group, right? And you kill group, they see the video, and you kind of get a feeling that they did it. You're still going to go through no coverage, though.
Of course, but I'll still go in the same order. So if they have no coverage or group, then I'm still going to go over group coverage first, then cash value, then term, then no coverage. Same order, both scenarios.
Do you no longer go through the visual of capital preservation of stretching money?
We don't do that anymore, only because when we transition to shortly to not showing them the amount of coverage we calculate, I don't want to show them like the income protection preservation side unless I really have to sell on how different we are when we deliver the policy. Deliver the claim.
It depends on the client. That's way over a lot of people's head. I train on it. I taught you that it works, but it's certain things are situational.
Yeah.
And I told her that I want bare bones this time, just for the training, to be concise and short. So.
Yep.
When it comes to the range, of how much money you put aside, does it matter if you do either the wife or husband first, or do you?
That's a really good question. So if it's a wife and a husband, so thanks for bringing that up. If it's a wife and husband and both make income, I'm gonna ask them how much per month would you be willing to set aside each to help take care of this need. And before you answer 50 to 100, 100 to 150, 150 to 200. Thanks for reminding me. That was Peter and Tia's training. Yeah. So I didn't learn it by myself. I learned from Peter and Tia.
So if they both say 50 to 100, it doesn't mean that you're going to give them each $100 policy, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna.
Some people do that too.
No. I'm still gonna start, because if somebody is used to paying for life insurance, assuming they get qualified, they're not used to paying it, to be honest. So you have to kind of work your way up with the client. Plus, it gives you a reason to follow up with them too. So if somebody gives me 100 each, that's 200 together, right, as a family. I'm still not going to quote a $200 policy. I'm probably going to quote maybe 150, right, 170, a little bit less. I'm never going to quote more. But if they're giving me a $50 commitment, I'll go like 55, 57, because I don't think anybody should have to think about $1 a day, $2 a day for the family. You say you love your family, but if it's a $200 monthly commitment for the family, 100 each, husband and wife, I'll give them 150 or less, depending on the situation. But I really try to understand what situation they're in, and that they didn't have insurance before and they're not used to paying this. So I need to make sure that, Next, no questions? Okay, guys, well, I have a recording somewhere. One of my teammates has it, some of them, right? Thank you so much for having me.
probably got the most out of that because I really wanted to learn how she does that. And I know that Shondell does it the exact same way, and many of you guys in here, so that's going to help me tremendously. There's two different things, right? I think when you guys hear and see me, you think, okay, Samir knows what he's doing in the field. I know what I'm doing in the field. I feel I'm very effective in the field. But there's a difference between just being good and then being systematic to the point to where you can copy yourself over and over again. And this is called being duplicatable, right? The way you do things, the question is, can everybody do it like that? So if I go in there and I'm just completely, Shaq is like this too, we're all intuition now. We can read you, we can see it, we can gauge, we can see do you have money, and we have very little patience, so sometimes we just leave. If you're not answering the right questions, if you're telling me you don't got money, if you're not motivated, I'm not even taking the time to make you think anything. I'm just leaving, right? And these are very bad habits when you want to be a field trainer that duplicates yourself over and over again. Does that make sense? And so that's why it's better for these guys. Shondell still calls me after every single appointment, and I get a message, and she tells me everything. A lot of times I don't have any feedback for her because she's better at this than I am. I'm just listening to her. Wow, you didn't get it? Okay, you know. But when it comes to securities and things like that, that's when I can probably add some value. But there's a reason we bring these guys up, and that was for me very empowering because I learned, you know, how she does that, which is going to be great as I'm field training new individuals. So I have, we're just going to go for 10 more minutes. I have some stuff here that I talk about in the field just to give you, you know, this will probably be more on the security side. So most of this for you guys, we don't have, not everyone is in that market. So for most of you, it'll just be entertainment hearing this stuff, but whatever. Okay, so one of the things you hear, already have a term, she went over this. We'll quickly go through this. I look at, if you have a term, I want to look at just the mechanics of it, not just the presentation. I want to look at your schedule of premium. Let me see the policy. Let me see what happens after the term is over. Let's take a look at the renewals. And then this is a big one is, do you have an agent, right? Do you have someone that's representing you? Do you have someone that you can call? She told the story about the claim. My story in regards to that, I had a lady, she was from Kenya, and her husband had died. And it was Gian actually sold that policy to that guy. So he met someone who introduced him to this gentleman, only saw him one time. The guy bought the policy. We never talked to him again. But good thing he bought it, right? Because he had passed away. And his wife called me because she called the home office and they said it rolled up to Samir. I never met her before. I'd never even met the guy who had bought the policy. And then so me and her started to engage in the process of getting this death benefit paid out. So I got the money within 10 days, and she was really, there was an urgency about her in terms of me getting the money. And I said, what's going on? And she goes, my husband used to drive me to work. I don't even know how to drive my car, okay? And so I'm trying to figure all of that out. And he used to do everything in the house. And back then we were going through this cold front where it was like minus whatever every single day. And she said, my heater's broken and I've actually been here for the last couple of days with no heat. And this is tough to hear, you know, when you have older parents, stuff like that, because she was in her 60s. And I just really pressed the company to get that money as soon as possible. And then she didn't have time to get the check from me, right? And then because she was, she worked at Sunrise Assisted Living, so I couldn't go there. So I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this. I said, look, just give me your bank account. I'll deposit it for you. And I deposited it for her, right? And then she was able to pay off all her bills. So that's the difference, man, in getting an agent. One of the top people I ever trained, Olia, her father-in-law passed away. And when I met them, he was already over 70, and he wasn't insurable. So he had to keep the whole life that he had from New York Life. I'll never forget, they were already in the business with me, and they were experiencing someone dying with a different insurance company within their own family. And they said, Samir, we just called the agent, okay, of my dad's policy. And she said, I'm so sorry that happened. My condolences to your families. Here's the 800 number so you can continue on with the claim. So this shows, right? This is how they do it. Even if you have an agent, what's the process going to be? They're going to give you the claims department, right? And then, of course, she talked about a terminal illness rider, which is huge, okay? So these are some things that we see. Another thing, college, right? This comes up. It's called a 529. get the numbers right. Right? It's funny when you go in the field, people are like, oh man, I heard about that 535.
Oh my
Okay. Right? The cool thing is that it is tax-free, which means that whatever growth you can achieve on it, you're not going to be responsible for any taxes. Now, this is an old presentation, but now it's a 15. Yeah, I was just saying it's an old presentation, so now it's a $15,000 limit, you know, $50 minimum. Okay. Does this maximum really matter? Who has a client that's putting in 15 grand a year? I know there's a couple of you, but it's not often, right? What matters more is the minimum. You can start with $50 a month. And I always explain this, that you're not getting into a college savings account because it's designated as a college savings account, so that's where the money should go. It's not that. The reason why is because if you get high growth on your money, which is what we're going to do with the American Funds 529, we're letting the interest pay. So you guys have seen this example where a client of mine, she put in 30,000, the funds added 80,000 of interest. She has now pulled out 80,000 and she still has 30,000. So what paid for college? Her hard-earned money? No, interest. That's the conversation you need to be having with people, not just that, oh, you need a college savings account. Why? Why don't you? Because it's better than it just saving the money, right? So this is a conversation we have. Next, active management, right? Active management. So sometimes people are looking for a type of investment portfolio when things happen like what happened last week. That was an unprecedented week in the market. In history, it has never happened before. How much we lost on a day-to-day basis, how much fluctuation, the bond market, the yield, the treasury, blah, 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 whatever all that means, right? And what some clients are looking for is a reaction by the agent to make a change, and that kind of makes them feel better, right? But we don't believe in that, right? Reactive management doesn't have a track record. There's no metric that says, hey, doing it that way where you constantly make changes, this is the return and it's better than if you just left it alone. It doesn't exist. It's just a theory. I can show you if you do a buy and hold strategy and you stay in the same portfolio and you ride it out, I can show you those returns and they're really good and you're going to do great. But show me in writing someone who has a metric that shows if you change your funds around all the time, that somehow you're making a lot of money. Show me. You might think it does, but you don't have any proof of that, right? Investor return versus real return. Do you know what this means? Sheila, there is a metric for funds that you can find some places that'll say, okay, Vanguard 500 has averaged 13% over the last 10 years. Great. But that's the fund return, right? That's the real return. Then they'll post what their investors actually got in that fund, and it's 4%. How did a fund that achieved 12, 13% only help the client get 4%? Because when they do the statistics and they really look at it, the people are getting in and out because they don't have an advisor and they react emotionally. And when you get out and get in at the wrong times, the actual return that the investor is achieving is much, much lower. So I have these conversations with people that you don't want reactive management where you're making a change. And a lot of times, and I talked about this yesterday at the Friday meeting, the downturn has already happened. Why would we do something now? When the money goes down and then you want to make a change, you're realizing that loss at a low. There's nothing to do but wait until it comes back at this point, right? And if you do that stuff, over time, you're going to lose more times than you get it right. I know people in their 401k, I'm going in, I'm going out. A non-client of mine told me yesterday he moved 50% of his money into a money market. Then when it goes down, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. This is stupid, okay? You leave your money as it is and you let it recover. If you have extra money, you can put it in at the low, right? But that's another thing that now is the time, right? We've been waiting for this. Yeah. Matt and we talk about index funds every other day. the Vanguards, the Fidelities, right? Now what? You have incurred 100% of the downside. I was looking at it. On the day the market lost 10, Growth Fund of America lost 8. That's 2% less. 20% less in a day that you lost in Growth Fund of America, right? You look at year to date, the index fund, which is basically the whole market, it lost this much. American funds only lost this much. You look at Balanced Fund, the market has lost 30, Balanced Fund has lost 12. That's a freaking big difference. There's no such thing as a balanced fund that's an index fund, right? People get into S&P 500, they get into large cap, they're only domestic. So when you're in an index fund, you're forced to invest in all 500 largest companies or whatever in that basket. Whereas in a managed fund, like what American funds, they choose the best within that category. And you can be under diversified sometimes. All right, Shaq is done. Team on 3. 1, 2, 3.